Storage, has come a long way, and we were able to survive for 30 years. But yes, we started out of our apartments basically, and then we kind of got an office here in Pittsburgh, and then we created the first website, and actually we got the domain raid.com, which was pretty cool at that time. So the raid technology was just coming out. And then we started promoting our JetStor and raid, and just having our first customers. And now we're up to 4,000 customers and 30 years in business after all this time. Leyzarovich with JetStor, and you're watching Data Center Go-to-Market podcast.
I'm Joshua Feinberg from the Data Center Go-to-Market podcast, and I have a very special guest here with me today. I have Gene Leyzarovich, who's the founder of JetStor, based in Pittsburgh. Gene, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Josh, and finally, nice to meet you. I've known you for a long time, so great to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well, and I've been admiring you from afar from as well. And you just celebrated. Congratulations on 30 years with JetStor. If I think about how much the storage industry has changed in IT over that time, I'm thinking about like to the mid 90s, back when a 20 megabyte hard drive or 40 megabyte hard drive and IDE drives and SCSI was something only people put in high-end PCs, and people had to makeshift servers. But can you give us a little bit of a recap of how you got to where you are today with JetStor?
Absolutely. Yes, we started in 1994, and our first drives were 4 gigabyte drives. They were ID drives, and then we got into the SCSI 68-pin technology. And our biggest array was like 8-bay array. It looked like a mini refrigerator, and it had about 40 gigabytes in storage. And now, obviously we are up to 30 to 60 terabytes per drives. So, the storage, has come a long way. And we were able to survive for 30 years. But yes, we started out of our apartments basically, and then we kind of got an office here in Pittsburgh, and then we created the first website, and actually we got the domain raid.com, which was pretty cool at that time. So the raid technology was just coming out, and then we started promoting our JetStor and raid, and just having our first customers. And now we're up to 4,000 customers and 30 years in business after all this time.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing, remarkable. If you think about the technology brands in the IT space who were around 30 years ago, it was like pre-Google, pre-Facebook, even
right.
Amazon.
If
you think about maybe Michael Dell is the last one who probably in the IT industry who's 30. Yeah, a lot of changes.
Yeah. There was no Google. It was just Lycos, Alta Vista, Excite. Yahoo was there as a catalog, and we were working with drives from Corner and Quantum. Micropolis also was there. So now there's only 3 standing, which is Western Digital, Seagate, and on the Flash side is Micron and Samsung, and a couple others are still around. So, but the industry has come a long way, and a lot of people went and go, but we're still here, which is pretty cool.
So I know that data center is a really important segment for JetStor.
Yes.
So surely in the last 30 years, you must have come across a lot of people at different stages of their careers within the data center industry. What advice would you give to somebody that's just getting started, trying to figure out the technology and the facilities and the real estate and where storage, the different types of storage technologies that fit into different kinds of co-location and hyperscale and enterprise facilities?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we've obviously been around many data centers and big deployments and medium deployments, etc. We're working with a lot of data center folks and what's called smart hands, as well as technicians and architects. There's obviously a lot of advice that we can give to the people that are just starting out. Number one is, you definitely have to learn infrastructure, and I think there is a lot of need in infrastructure because a lot of the data is now going to public cloud, even though there's actually only 5% that of data is actually stored in the public cloud. So there's still a lot of independent data centers that exist, and a lot of companies are looking for data center technicians, data center architects, and anybody that's with networking experience, and of course with storage experience as well as cloud experience. And a lot of it is data migration. You got to know all the different networking technologies. You got to know all the different data storage technologies and switching, as well as interconnectivity between data centers, as well as, of course, racking and stacking, and etc. So, and cooling and UPSs and sizing of the power. So there's a lot of needs that that are going to be coming out with, of course, AI that's around the corner, and it's a lot of people already using and building AI platforms, AI farms, and just working also on the server side. There's a lot of need for server technicians, that's out there. So there's definitely a lot of different tips that we can provide to those guys that are starting out, and a lot of people need to learn the infrastructure.
Now, what about someone who you may have known for 5, 10 years? You run into at a conference, they're just not getting where they wanted to go in their career. They're feeling a sense of burnout. They're looking to reset and a reboot, and asking for your advice on opportunities in and around storage in the data center industry. What would you tell to someone that's trying to figure out what their next chapter should be?
Yes, we're seeing a lot of noise, obviously, about VMware with Broadcom. You probably have heard about it, and we've seen a lot of customers that are looking at for different hyper-converged solutions that are alternatives to VMware. So we have started seeing a lot of interest in a company called Proxmox, which is out of Germany, but they are coming out to the US market, and we see a lot of customers already switching to Proxmox for virtualization. A lot of customers are looking at Hyper-V with Microsoft, to virtualize and their environments, as well as other hyper-converged solutions that are out there. So you have to basically know a lot of different technologies, virtualization technologies out there. So it used to be just all VMware, but a lot of our customers, like MSPs and cloud providers, are now getting into other technologies that are out there. So learning the different virtualization technologies is definitely helpful, I think, to the people that are already have knowledge like VMware or Hyper-V. And there's a lot of alternatives to VMware that's coming out. I think there's going to be a lot of demand for those kind of skills.
So the recurring theme I keep hearing from you is that it's nice to know the storage technologies well, but it's even more valuable to have a broader understanding of both infrastructure and virtualization technologies.
Yes, precisely. So basically, before there were a lot of large companies would have like storage architects, but those positions kind of evolved into more of a general architect, where he manages the networking, this, and as well as the whole infrastructure and the different cloud providers and different cloud technologies. So you have to kind of be a jack of all trades. So you have to know the storage, the networking, the virtualization, the OS, and an application layer as well. So a lot of MSPs, who are customers and cloud providers, are looking for a lot of kind of generalists that know a lot about many different things. So just to know storage is may not be enough unless you're working for like an enterprise company.
When you think about your go-to-market playbook that you use to reach the data center industry, and you look at the broader industry, if you look at data storage technology, data protection, data management, and you're thinking about the whole life cycle from marketing to sales to customer success to product to channel partnerships, what do you think others in the industry struggle with, or some mistakes that you've noticed that others make when they try to figure out how to best reach and engage with the data center marketplace?
When we deal with data centers, they mostly deal with a lot of infrastructure. That's you have to understand, like I mentioned, multiple technologies, and understand the cooling, the power consumption, the rack space, as well as the proximity to the customer. So a lot of companies, they're not understanding the actual infrastructure, but they just trying to sell maybe one little gadget. But when you're dealing with a data center, it's a whole infrastructure. You have switching, you have servers, you have storage, and you have all these components that need to fit together. So the best part is, for the person who's going to win the project is going to be the one that's going to provide the complete solution. And that's what we've seen from our folks. We're able to provide a complete solution.
Taking ownership of all the interactions beyond just the storage devices.
Correct.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Going back to my roots in IT services and managed services, it's anything and everything having to do with IT, the single throat to choke.
Yes, exactly.
Single point of accountability.
That's why we deal with data centers as well as MSPs as well as cloud providers, because we only provide the small piece, but they're the ones that provide the complete solution. And by designing it around their needs and understanding their needs, we're able to provide a better solution for them.
Yeah, it's super interesting too. If we look at what's been going on in the capital markets the last few years, technology companies are now warming up to, ecosystem is important. Let's pay attention to channel partners. But if you look at a lot of the technology company, the old guard persevering technology companies from the 90s and early 2000s, a lot of them have invested handsomely in their channel ecosystems and have been able to reap the rewards for that.
That's correct. Yes. Now we've seen a lot of data centers that are providing solutions as well. So a lot of these data centers sort of evolved as a solution providers. So they provide, again, the compute as a service, backup as a service, networking as a service, et cetera. So, and they look at your whole infrastructure, your applications, et cetera. So we definitely seen an involvement from just providing a rack and racks and of space. They provide the whole solutions to them.
Yeah, I've noticed that as well over the last 10 years, that there's a number of companies that historically position themselves as co-location operators that now position themselves in the managed services business. And then
exactly
just the challenge now is figuring out, okay, if they want to partner with managed service providers, how do they draw the line in the sand to make their channel partners feel comfortable that there's not overlap and there's a clear delineation? But yeah, that's something more for
it's a
channel strategists to figure out.
Yeah, it's a tricky part how they deal with that. But obviously they want to sell mostly space in a data center, which is a colo. So
the Data Center Go-to-Market podcast is sponsored by DCSMI, elevating the role of sales, marketing, and go-to-market GTM professionals in the growth of the data center industry. To stay informed about upcoming episodes, make sure that you subscribe to the Data Center Sales and Marketing newsletter on the DCSMI website that can be found at www.dcsmi.com. Again, that URL is www.dcsmi.com.
Shifting gears, one of the big opportunities that everyone seems to be paying attention to in the data center space now is what's coming with AI. You have Jensen Huang predicting $1 trillion going into the data center ecosystem in the next 4 years. You have Michael Dell calling for 100-fold increase in data center demand. What changes do you see happening with your daily routine, with your team's daily routines because of AI?
Yes, obviously, I've been going to different conferences this year, and the whole talk is about AI. There's only 2 letters in the alphabet. They say it's A and I, and basically, everybody's talking about Copilot. That's a big thing with Microsoft. They introduced it, and a lot of people started using it, and using it for marketing as well as sales. And then as well as support, for first line of support. A lot of our customers, MSP customers, are starting using AI for first line of support. And then generative AI is coming on board as well. We've seen a lot of partners and customers that are building smaller AI farms, as well as AI clusters. And that's where the data centers are going to be really busy with they're going to be providing the space for that, because a lot of the data is going to have to be privately stored. So there's going to be a lot of private sort of clusters of AI setups that is going to be popping up everywhere. There's already companies are actually offering AI as a service, AI storage AI, because it's going to generate a lot of data, and they don't really know which data they're going to keep, and they're going to sort of trash, etc. So they're going to keep most of the data, and it's going to generate petabytes of storage, which is good for us and all the other storage guys that are out there. But as you know, NVIDIA is having a great time. They just had a big conference, and they've announced new processors, etc. So they've seen a huge amount of business from AI, and we're anticipating to see some of it. It's coming probably this second part of the year.
If you think ahead with your crystal ball 2 years from now, how do you see your day-to-day routine changing because of AI, or do you not see much change coming because of AI? In other words, in the day-to-day role of growing JetStor.
It's a great question. I think we started using Copilot, and basically all of the analytics that comes with it, where it can analyze the meetings, it can analyze the notes, it can analyze the video, it can basically save about 10 to 20% a week of productivity time, and basically so we can spend our time on something more productive. I think it's definitely gonna have some impact, soon on many different aspects of our lives, and hopefully it's gonna be robust enough that people be able to utilize it and not just be able to talk to the machines. But I've been seeing AI with like even marketing, from marketing standpoint, where a lot of the automation has been done for emails as well as video, as well as presentations. Again, we don't know how effective this is going to be because of the human interaction is becoming less and less. So hopefully, it's going to create a good opportunity for everybody, and is going to be beneficial for people and beneficial for consumers, and as well as IT professionals.
Gene, you mentioned Copilot a few times. That's also one of my favorite apps. What else would be in your top 5 list of software tools that you can't live without?
Just in general?
That you use to run JetStor on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, so we use basically some CRM. We use CRM, HubSpot. We're using HubSpot. We're using a lot of CRM tools. We're using some marketing tools from Polo. So we have multiple tools that we use here, and they're implementing AI features in those tools. So we'll be utilizing those in our day-to-day operation.
That's terrific. So really interesting to hear your thoughts about the role of storage as a piece of infrastructure, as a piece of hybrid cloud, as a piece of private cloud, but making sure that people in the ecosystem are way more well-rounded, so they understand how all the pieces fit together, especially in smaller environments. Sounds like you're very bullish on the future of AI as a productivity tool, but obviously still jury's out a little bit on trying to figure out the human impact and the change of all this and what we're going to see in the future of storage. For this podcast, for the Data Center Go-to-Market podcast, who do you think I should interview next? You have any suggestions?
Yeah, we work with a lot of data centers around the country. So like Switch and Equinix, some really large data centers, and we have some medium ones as well. So I can refer to our partners in the data center space for sure.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think for a lot of people that are new to the industry, just realizing how many different facets of this there are. I mean, I put together something a couple of months ago. I identified 52 different business models in and around the data center industry, aside from just the operators themselves. I think for people that are relatively new, it kind of is like walking into the warehouse club or superstore and seeing the aisles and feeling like it's an entirely different language, having to navigate that.
There's so much in the data centers that is needed. Like smart hands, like I said, architects, as well as networking guys and as well as power guys, electrical, rack and stack. So there's a lot of needs in the data center space that's definitely is out there.
Gene, what's the best way for someone to learn more about the work that you're doing at JetStor, follow you, and keep up with your products and solutions?
Absolutely. So we are, of course, on the website. Our website is JetStor.com. That's our brand name, and that's our name, the company name now. We renamed ourselves from Advanced Computer Network Corporation to now JetStor, so much easier to remember. So JetStor.com is our company and our website, as well as they can email me at gene@acnc.com, as well as gene@jetstor.com. And we also have LinkedIn. Everybody can find me on LinkedIn. I have over 31,000 followers on LinkedIn and connections. And then all other social media we are on as well. But that's how we, definitely they can email me or find me on LinkedIn or the website.
Well, Gene, thanks so much for joining me today. I've been speaking with Gene Leyzarovich, who's the founder of JetStor, specializes in data storage management, storage protection in and around the data center industry, one of the most important segments. I'm thrilled to have you with us, and I wish you great success in the coming years and in the coming decades in growing JetStor.
Thank you so much, Joshua.
The Data Center Go-to-Market podcast is sponsored by DCSMI, elevating the role of sales, marketing, and go-to-market GTM professionals in the growth of the data center industry. To stay informed about upcoming episodes, make sure that you subscribe to the Data Center Sales and Marketing newsletter on the DCSMI website that can be found at www.dcsmi.com. Again, that URL is www.dcsmi.com.